Sammy Hagar doing both sides now, right here on Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody's doing great out there. Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. Let's try that one. I don't know what was coming out of my face, but it wasn't those words, that's for sure. No, block them, stop them, keep them back, do it now. Get them in the chopper, save them. Yeah. Anywho, Dan RadioStyle. Nice to see you guys. We're talking about just because we can do something doesn't mean we should do something. And I think there's always a good idea to keep a little bit of that morality kind of built into it. We can tell ourselves something is moral, right? And say, well, I'm going to manifest it as moral. When it's an immoral act, it's still an immoral act. You're still making a choice. You're still creating. So there are times where I think it's important to ask, is this really a good idea? I'm going to give one example of mankind things that we've done. One of each. One that was a really horrible example, and we are super lucky it ended up the way it did. And another that would probably be catastrophic and absolutely horrible if we did do, and fortunately we haven't yet. I hope we don't. The example is we shot a nuclear weapon really high. It was like above Hawaii. I want to say it was barely up in space, and then detonated it. And that created a lot of little funny problems. We learned a lot about what happens when you do a high atmospheric testing, and certainly created some problems, broke some stuff, blinded some people. All in a day's work. It was bad, but we did it. And it was someone that's like, it'd be really cool to see if this happened, what occurs to us. And that was where we had a lot of telescopes and all sorts of cool stuff, So I get that's why they did it over Hawaii. And considering it was a U.S. territory, one could argue, hey, science is figuring things out and it only cost a few lives maybe. All right, so whatever. We'll leave that all out. But again, shooting giant nuclear explosions right above your house, that's why they don't have lawn darts anymore. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the toy, but there's a lawn dart. This is a great example of what my show's about. And it's a weighted dart that are for the yard. So you had like a hula hoop sized hole, like that's what you're aiming for. And then on the other side, you put one of those. It's kind of like horseshoes. And if you stand on one side and chuck the darts, that's where the other person's more or less standing, or you can both do them from the same location, which is how you should do it. But again, there's issues where people would throw them straight up in the air above themselves and then get impaled with them. It was a cool toy. I played with them as a child, but certainly not a safe one if you did silly things. So again, another example. Now, the thing we didn't do, and it goes back to nuclear weapons because it is basically the biggest horrible thing we've created as far as explosions go. So it's like, ooh, what can we blow up, right? That's just how boys think, probably. I don't think girls necessarily go down the, hey, I got an idea. Let's see if we can blow the moon up. And yeah, that was a real idea. They wanted to shoot nuclear weapons to the moon and see what happens. Blowing up the moon, the thing that really hugely affects our tides, first off, something to keep in mind. And there's that weird 28-day cycle that really seems to tie in coincidentally with other cycles that occur oddly on this planet in 28-day cycles. Seems strange. But so, needless to say, we haven't done that yet. But it's another example of something we can do, but probably shouldn't. Now, when it gets down to the moral issues, and that's really the whole part of this, and I'm hoping to, throw a little fun, hey, here's some stuff you maybe didn't know, and on top of that, a little bit of something to keep in mind when doing manifestations. I have found frequently, too, that when a manifestation benefits more people, it tends to happen quicker. It tends to be more of a benefit, and the universe tends to kind of, I don't know if there's a multiplier that kicks in. I don't know how that mechanism works per se, but it definitely, the more people that it benefits, the more people that it tends to happen quicker. There just tends to be this weird effect. And if it's adversarially, I'll try that word. I'm having a hard time today. It's okay, it happens. If you're trying to come at somebody from that standpoint, meaning, for an example, maybe there's someone that you're a specific person, and I mean no disrespect to anybody that may fall into these categories, but these are things to consider and things to think about. There's been people that have asked before that wanted somebody for a long period of time, maybe years, months, whatever, and eventually this individual marries somebody else. I think oftentimes from this standpoint, it's kind of tough to keep wanting to, now you're trying to ruin a new marriage, right? With two people, not ruin, but trying to break up, because for things to work out, there's that. And then there maybe is other people involved. Maybe there's an expense. Maybe there's, who knows what other aspects. Certainly the people. I mean, it's really an important part. Expenses, money, whatever. But you're affecting lives when you're trying to manifest this individual who's now with someone else. There's kind of a karmic relationship, if you will, that we have with others, and certainly a karmic responsibility. And when we do things like that, we can sometimes get blocked because, frankly, or their choice, whatever it may be, it doesn't happen for a myriad of reasons, probably. Should we be trying to make that happen? I don't know. I put the question out to you. I'm not trying to make these decisions. Yeah, obviously I bring them up as examples. So the side that I would tend to be on, I will say in this case, there's certainly a lot of places, and this was even the case with Goddard himself, where someone might be married and maybe not in a happy marriage, maybe not in a healthy situation, maybe in a marriage with somebody that treats them beyond poorly. And these are different scenarios in my mind. That's one thing. When you're just married, that's maybe a good time to be like, all right, universe has spoken. They're married now, recently. We'll see what happens in 2-3 years, right? Because in all honesty, if there is going to be a divorce, it's going to take a while. They don't just usually just fall apart like instantly. They can, but usually they don't. So another one is kind of any scenario, I guess, where you might be wishing badness or bad on someone else, where you're requiring or focusing on anyways of how you would like to see that individual removed from the scenario. Like when you start to focus on those sorts of negative aspects towards people, when you start to put energy towards that, remember, we get back what we're sending out. So when you're thinking of redemption, when you're thinking of getting even, when you're thinking of, I don't like you, I need you out of my way, when you're thinking this can't continue because you're special, like you can't get to where you're trying to go when you keep focusing on some of the things that aren't necessarily on the up and up, aren't necessarily the highest vision of the best version you've ever held about yourself. As Neil Donald Walsh frequently says. I love the quote. The highest version, the best version of the highest vision you've ever held about yourself. I always screw up the quote because I switch around the first two parts. We have to look at what we're putting out. We have to look at what we require for our manifestation to come to fruition. And if it requires the sacrificing of an entire nation, well, that might not be a good thing. And if it doesn't hurt anybody, well, that's probably a good thing. And most of us probably fall someplace in between those two. Roughly. Maybe closer to the other sides. It helps. A lot of us, I want there to be that sort of understanding that whatever decisions you make, there is an aspect to it that we have a moral responsibility towards how we co-create in life. And that will impact the speed at which we can manifest, the speed at which things happen. Just trying to bring some attention to it. Maybe I'm crazy. Wouldn't be the first time I've been called worst. Hey, going out with a cool song, by the way. Manfred Mann's the band I'm going out with. Very good band. Literally took Christopher Thompson's son to the beach when I was younger, and he was the dude that sang, it's not the song I'm going out with, another famous song I'm going out with by them, but they sang also Blinded by the Light. And that was him that sings that. And by the way, I took his kid to the beach. So anyway, Manfred Mann, this song's called Do-Wah-Diddy. Oh, sorry, Do-Wah-Diddy-Diddy. Anyway, it's a little ditty here on Dan RadioStyle.
She looked good, she looked fine, and I nearly lost my mind. Before I knew it, she was walking next to me.